At Dead Stream Swamp. This is, man, where do I describe this place? Lake City, Fife Lake, not too far from Grayling. It's the middle of nowhere. The last couple miles driving here, I didn't realize the direction I was going to be coming in. So I'm looking for a small town that's just north of where I'd be parking, and there's nothing. You see behind me, this is what everything looks like from the side of the road. The only difference is there's actual dirt, a lot of swamp, a lot of streams running through here. So right now I'm going down the 2-track that Brian Jock and Kyle Mosher had driven down, allegedly. The more I thought about this story, the more I wonder whether or not Kyle was actually alive when the truck was coming down here. This is not a place to sneak around and get high. I am having more trouble figuring out why these two guys came back here. I guess that's the biggest question. So they drove back here, and I'm guessing I'm going to be probably going back about, according to the map, a kilometer, or depending on where you're from, a kilometer. So that's weird. It's kind of a goofy setup. I have a feeling I'm going to see a lot of like really strange and odd things back here. And this looks like the makings of some type of hydroponic system. What the hell? This is I don't know what to make of this. Unless somebody is just throwing trash, which that doesn't surprise me either. So anyways, the story, about 10 years ago, Kyle is with his fiance and their kids out at Houghton Lake. He runs into a guy who is the brother of somebody he knew from high school. Both of these guys are addicts, Kyle and Brian. Brian doesn't have his own cell phone, doesn't seem to have any money, but somehow is able to convince Kyle to drive the 40-plus mile trip back to Cadillac for some reason. So they leave. Kyle leaves his fiance and the kids at Houghton Lake, at the place they were visiting. He never comes back. After that point, everything's a question mark. Now, the fiance and Kyle's mom say that it was obvious that he had at some point stopped back at their apartment in Cadillac, that he might have taken some things with him. And then between the apartment at Cadillac and the 2-track that I'm on, nobody seems to have any idea as to what happened. So this was, I believe it was a Friday night. Saturday morning, one of the two guys emerged from these woods on that that dirt road back there. Yeah, it's a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. So the 2 or 3 miles traveling that road, I did not see a single person, a single vehicle. One of these guys walked out of the woods to that dirt road and was picked up by a couple of bear hunters. Hence the 45 I am carrying on me now. So these guys, one of these guys gets picked up, and the bear hunters take this one dude out of the two, back to the truck on this 2-track where they drop him off. 2 days after that, Brian Jock emerges several miles in that direction from the woods. By that point, it's known that Kyle's missing. Nobody was looking for Brian. Kind of tells you the type of person he might have been, or is, considering he's still around. And it took Kyle's mom contacting the police before they started questioning him as to where Kyle was. By this point in time, Cadillac police had instructed Kyle's fiance's mother to claim that the truck Kyle was borrowing was stolen so that they could put out a warrant for him to initiate a search, because Kyle had not been gone long enough, according to the law, to justify him being missing. So now he's wanted for felony car theft, which really isn't that big of a deal. Once they catch him or find him, the only thing she needs to do is drop the charges, and now they know where Kyle's at. Kind of makes sense in a way. And it bumps up the search earlier, but it also had people thinking that the only reason people were looking for Kyle was because he had a felony. So the whole missing person thing for a while, a lot of people thought was bullshit. What happened after that? So Brian goes through these woods, and apparently he used to do a lot of dirt bike racing back here. And he at some point in his younger years lived in this area, so he knew the woods pretty well. So this guy broke into a series of cabins. The first cabin, while the police are checking his story, had some of Kyle's clothes in it. And there's one important detail I tend to focus on, which is when they asked why he had Kyle's clothes, and when they told him where they found the clothes, he made the comment of, "Oh, I forgot to burn those." Why would you have to burn those? It's kind of a fair question, right? Oh, it looks like there was a parking spot back here I could have used. Maybe it's not a parking spot. Maybe this is that other trail. No, this looks like it goes to a campsite. Yeah, this is definitely going to like some type of campsite, I think. Maybe it's worth checking out. I'll have to check the map. Have spots where you can pull off to the side and go camping. Probably more for hunting. Did hear some partridge flapping around. So I'm guessing there's some good inland bird hunting here. Obviously bear hunting, as was noted before. And man, this is all sand. So I'm glad I didn't take my car back here, because that shit is pretty hard to get out of once you get stuck in it. So, what else is going on here? I have no cell service, so I can't imagine that would have been any better 10 years ago. One of the parts of Brian's story was that they had used Kyle's cell phone as a flashlight after getting the truck stuck. They tried driving the truck. Somebody tried driving the truck over a tree that had fallen across this trail. Now, I highly doubt I am going to come across that tree. My guess is that that has been removed a long time ago. So as for finding the exact spot, without the ability to use a map or GPS, I'm going to have to go pretty much by memory. And this seems to be the bend in this trail. I think this is kind of like the halfway point, so actually we're not doing that bad here for time. So if this is the bend, oh shit, yeah, then there's two trails, and I do believe the one they went on is to the right, if I do recall. Which is hilarious, because some of the maps that I have... Oh wait, no, I think this might be another campsite. I'll have to wait and see. Okay, so that was another campsite. It's hard to tell because the actual loop for the campsite looks like it's been driven more than the actual trail that I'm on. So it must be confusing for a lot of people who come back here too. Other things about this case. There was the dog. So the dog was one that Kyle had given or sold to somebody else. It was a puppy from his dog. So the owner, for one reason or another, didn't want the dog anymore, called Kyle. Kyle went and picked it up. So the dog was familiar with Kyle. The dog came with him on this trip. When Brian came out of the woods 3 days later, there was no dog. So there's no dog. There is no Kyle, no sign of the dog. But a few years later, a logging company, and I think I might know the actual area they cleared out because I drove by it. And I'll have to double check on the map to see if that is the same spot where they found the leash. They found a leash and collar tied to a tree. So obviously somebody had left the dog in this wooded area. Why somebody would do that? Well, people know about the dog. So if the cops show up to somebody's house asking about a missing person and they see the dog that the person is closely associated with in several ways, Yeah, that's not good. So the dog is left in the woods, and a few weeks after Kyle goes missing, the dog appears north of town running around. It was definitely dehydrated, was probably living off of whatever the hell it could find to eat in here. I have heard and seen very little wildlife, but then again, this is what, late winter, early spring. You're not going to see much. I can't imagine what this place looks like come spring and summer. Because where I live, like, you can pretty much see through the woods. Because there's no leaves on anything. There's no leaves on anything, and I can't see through the woods here. So these are some very, very dense woods. Which again leads me back to, why did they come out here? I guess the better question is, why did Brian come out here? Because, I mean, if something happened, if there was an argument and a scuffle, and something happened to Kyle, I mean, there's plenty of stories about people going missing in northern Michigan, right? And a lot of those stories have to do with, well, if you piss off the wrong person, they're never going to find the body. Here's another clearing for our campsite. And I'm leaning towards, that is probably what happened. I don't think he ever expected to get the truck stuck. Sounds like something a person in a panic would do, right? So you have the truck that has value, but it's also evidence. Then you've got Kyle. Pit bulls. People love their pit bulls up here. I think it's just like, I mean, it's fairly common everywhere now. For whatever reason, that breed of psycho is highly desired these days. Having said that, that pit bull puppy, or that young pit bull, the one that is like prime breeding age, because you get several years out of it and several puppies, that's going to look like a money source too. Especially to people who do that kind of thing. So, leads me to another question of, at some point, did Brian just say, it's better to cut all of my losses, come up with some cockamamie story where they got separated in the middle of the night? I don't know where Kyle went. He went running after the dog. When in reality, yeah, I'm guessing Kyle might not have even been alive at that point. Or maybe he was. But then why would you agree to go back here in the middle of the freaking night on a Friday? I suppose I mean, if you're living out here and you want to throw a party, or it's well known that people throw parties out here, I mean, how many people could you gather over here? You park some cars along the trail, get a little fire going in the middle. Some dude's got a keg in the back of his truck. Then you got the people that bring the fun drugs. How often does that happen back here? Is that where Friday night Is that where Kyle thought he was going? Dude, I heard about this party. No, it's not your girl scene, but... Dude, and there's this guy, he cooks the best stuff. You ever see that Breaking Bad? Was Breaking Bad around back then? I don't think so. Oh yeah, this trail is starting to get like really shitty. There's no way my car would have gotten through here. I wanted to go for a hike anyways. Another thing I had been thinking about was the guy who walked out of the woods Saturday morning. You're going back this far. Back in, this kind of feeds into my theory. Party much? Let's be real, that's probably from hunting season. At least it's not a Bud Light. I don't want to be going back in the Brokeback country. So, the guy who walked out of the woods to the road. So now the camera's facing south, which means that is north. Sunrise is that way, sets that way. So if you're out here all night and you want to know what direction to head towards the road, well, when you start seeing the sunrise, you're going to go that way. You're just going to keep going that way through the woods with no trail, because where that person popped out, they did not use this 2-track to get back out. They somehow got lost in the woods, couldn't get back to the truck, were able to make their way back to the road, then tried to get back to the truck. Yeah, I'm thinking this is probably the most open area. There definitely was logging back here a while back. And another beer can. Bush Light. For those of you who ever thought about getting a thigh holster, don't know if you can see it. These are horribly designed. Unless you want to cut off the blood flow to your legs by tightening your belt to the point where that fucker is not going to move from the simple act of walking. Right now my pistol is currently smashing against my knee every time I walk because the straps just keep moving down. Who thinks of these things? Well, as you can see, the logging that happened back here was a few years ago. That is not 1 year of growth. So it's pretty quick and amazing how fast these clear cut spots grow back. Obviously there's some stuff that was left behind. Either it didn't hit the standard size that they were looking for, or they're required to leave a certain amount in order to promote growth. Who knows? But anyways, it is a nice walk. Haven't done a hike like this in a couple years now. Thankfully, I am no longer working Saturdays at my shitty job. I won't say where my shitty job is, but the fact that I was lied into signing up for a position where they could make me work every Saturday. Oh, and keep in mind, I asked for a job description before signing that bid. And I was basically told, oh, just trust us. You want this job. You want to be full-time? You want this job. No. This was the job that they put you in when they don't want you to be full-time, because this is the job nobody wants. So they just throw you in there until you leave, and then they'll talk somebody else into it. That's the type of shitty job I had. But that's done, thankfully. Is this looping back around? I'm gonna have to try to figure out where the hell I'm at. That's not good. So, like anywhere else in Michigan, you go out in the woods and you think you're in the middle of nowhere. I've done a lot of hunting over the years, and not necessarily the case. Okay, I grew up in the city. I didn't start hunting until I was in my 30s. I won't tell you how old I am now, but I can tell you it doesn't take long to get used to the woods. And one thing you will notice is that, if you can see this behind me, that's a deer trail. And over here we've got some more deer trails. Deer travel through the woods all the time. They take the path of least resistance, always. I'm traveling on a deer trail right now, back to the 2-track. So, these stories of people getting lost in the woods and can't find their way out, they don't know which direction to go. You can follow a deer trail, because guess what? A deer trail is going to take you to 2 places. Water, deer like water, and food. And here in Michigan, unless it's acorns or something like that, man, there's a lot of helicopter traffic. And I do believe that is Black Hawk. Hold on a second. I'm not entirely sure those are Blackhawks. They don't quite match what I would expect them to look like. Those are military. We're over by Grayling. Come on now. That is not uncommon. What is uncommon is when I have A-10 Warhogs flying over my house. True story. That video is on my Instagram. So, and we are already back to the 2-track. This is the spot. I did find the spot where the truck became stuck. And yes, I was exploring through the woods. It's been 10 years. So, look down here, you will see fallen tree trunk. I do believe that is the same tree that had been cut and cleared for this path. Unless unless there is a deathbed confession, unless somebody goes hiking or camping back here and accidentally stumbles across something that resembles human bones, and unless the local predators in the area did not completely strip and erase that body. And I've seen that happen. Not humans, but there was one year I was out deer hunting. It was the second or third day of the season. I believe it was the second day. I know well enough not to go out on the first day, and I do believe I had to work that day. So I went out on day 2, and I came across a huge doe. This was a big doe, okay? This was well over 100 pounds, maybe pushing 2. Somebody had gut shot it with a 12 gauge. I mean, it was pretty obvious what was used. It's very obvious where it was shot. Either they didn't bother tracking it after they shot it, or when they did, they realized what a fucking mess they made and decided to just leave it, knowing that odds are the meat was tainted. Either way, they're an asshole. So during that time, I would get out of work at about 3, which gave me 2 to 3 hours to go out hunting. Evening, either sunrise or sunset. Best time for deer hunting. So of course on my schedule, I was out in the evening. During that time, I would walk by that deer every day. And in less than a week, that thing, everything, except for, I don't know if it was the front or the hind legs, you know, the skinny little part with the hoof, everything except for that, which there's hardly anything for an animal to find worth eating. Everything was gone. The hide, the head. Oh yeah, it was weird watching the head slowly disappear. Something was going out at night, just gnawing on that thing. And then it was only a matter of like 2 or 3 days. Parts of the body are scattered around. You'd find the spinal column somewhere over here, rib cage over here, hip and hindquarters in another spot. You get a group of coyotes out there, and that thing's gonna disappear. I don't know what's back here. There's coyotes. There's definitely coyotes. There's bear. People go bear hunting back here. Bear are scavengers. They will eat whatever they come across. So, is there a chance of finding something back here? So that brings me back to, unless there's some type of deathbed confession, somebody grows a conscience, there's, goddamn. I can't imagine, with the terrain, what they were wearing. These guys were dressed for the beach. The flip-flops. The one thing that wouldn't decompose or be eaten by the animals. The flip-flops were found. Kyle's flip-flops. Looked like they were thrown in some bushes when they were discovered. And that's very possible. I've thought about that part of the story. As a kid, I remember trying to run in flip-flops, which is horribly stupid, by the way. Great way to tear up your feet. There's that clop, 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 because they're not secured to your heel. If you're trying to run, it's going to be clop, 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 clop every time you lift up your foot. That flip-flop is hitting your heel. It's the middle of the night. Somebody's chasing you. What would you do if you were trying to hide and every time you moved, plop, 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 plop? You take them off. It's not exactly a great weapon. It's not going to do you any good. And it may seem like a good idea for a split second where you're just going to take them off, toss them to the side, and then, wow, it's quiet. Then you're stepping on shit barefoot. I don't see that going well for somebody running around in the woods back here. Middle of the night, no lights. You can't see where you're going. A lot of questions. Definitely an interesting mystery. And I don't, I mean, I'm talking about coyotes. This is not somebody walking a dog. This is something dog-like. Here's some deer. There's some deer tracks there. And there's a nice deer path going through there. Oh man. Well, it was definitely worth coming out here, seeing the spot for myself. Holy shit. I'm into my car now. It's interesting following my own footprints back where I came from. And I'm trying to decide whether I've actually had more questions answered or if I'm leaving with more questions than I came with. And in reality, I think the theories as to shotgun shell, and that looks like birdshot. Told ya. So I think I have a better idea as to why they would have driven out here. Seeing these campsites along the side of the trail. Unfortunately, knowing more about local drug culture than I probably should. The thing is, I never got into that scene. I know people who were. And it's not necessarily an area like this. It would be drug culture itself, right? It's more kids, young adults wanting to party out of sight of authorities. Like where I grew up, the redneck kids, the ones that grew up in Vicksburg, Galesburg, anything with a burg that was outside of Kalamazoo. Schoolcraft, where you would drive down a country road. Summertime, there's no school, so you would find cornfield. Hundreds of acres of cornfields. You could park a car, go back into the cornfield where a little spot is cleared out. Kids gather around, drink, smoke their choice of smoke, and have fun. That's never been my idea of fun, but people do that. If you're out here, well, for one, I've noticed that farmers are very, very, very picky about what's happening out on their property, as they should be. For one, there's definitely a religious community out here. They're going to frown upon things like that. But then you have this vast public land where people can go camping. You go out on one of these 2 tracks, 100 yards in, your car, your truck is no longer visible from the road. A road that is hardly ever traveled to begin with. You instantly disappear. Word of mouth, 3-4 cars, you're bringing a few friends per car. You get 20-30 people back here, you're having a good night. And being out in the woods, unless you're one of those crazy bastards that decides to just wander off away from the campfire or the headlights of vehicles, well, the woods are not going to seem that scary. There goes some more partridge. So, working theory here, Kyle was told he was going to a party. They got back here, there's no party. Do I think it was premeditated? Doesn't seem like they knew each other beforehand. Doesn't mean Brian doesn't know somebody that Kyle might have screwed over at some point in time. But the idea of this guy, no money, no life, no responsibilities, being hired or thinking that he's going to make something of himself by killing this dude, no, it would have to have been circumstance, opportunity. Maybe they thought there was a party back here and they took the wrong road and then there was a fucking fight. My fiance and my kids are at that lake house. It's the middle of the night. I told them I'd go back and get them. You brought me out in the middle of nowhere. You're a piece of shit. Who knows how that conversation would have gone. Or it could just be Brian wanted the dog. I feel like it comes back to the dog. Dog is left tied to a tree. People know about the dog. Dog becomes a liability. Kyle wouldn't give it to him. Lord knows they're both probably high on meth. Not exactly the best circumstance for making good choices. Yeah. So what is the lesson here to learn, kids? Don't leave your fiance and your kids in the middle of nowhere going off with a stranger. Lord knows I came across... What the fuck is that? Why do I keep finding weird shit back here? Okay, so, well... 5-gallon bucket. Could be a whole lot of nothing. You carry some corn out here, you dump it. Establish some type of bait pile. Use the bucket as a seat because you don't want your ass sitting on the ground during hunting season. Then you leave it thinking, this is my spot, only you don't get back out to the woods. I don't see somebody driving all the way back here to just go and, I need to get rid of this 5-gallon bucket. It won't fit in my trash can. Where can I waste gas in order to dump it? Nope. Lazy hunter. I've come across quite a few of those. So anyways, I think this is the end of my adventure. Deadstream Swamp. Another little trail. These, man, there's so many people writing online about this place, about how like, oh, it's so easy to get lost back there. Oh my God, all I have to do is make one wrong turn and you're dead. No, this place, granted, I'm not seeing it at its peak in the summer. Nobody should be out here during the summer, okay? I'm just gonna say that. Overgrown, I'm seeing a ton of fern, a lot of ground cover. The mosquitoes are probably atrocious out here, as they are everywhere else in Michigan. I just don't see anybody really getting lost. Granted, I've been out here maybe 2 hours. But even when I wandered away from the 2-track, for one, I was in between two tracks. Didn't make any sense to go in the other direction. You know, the one where Brian said that he traveled. But then again, I'm going to point this little fact out. And that is, during this trip that Brian took over that weekend, where he suddenly emerged far south away from where everything happened, he would have crossed 2 roads just like this. Why he wouldn't just take a 2-track back to the main road if he was looking for help or if he was lost, that tells me something happened. He believes he's a suspect. He emerges from the woods. He's thinking that, for one, he's probably thinking Kyle's body was going to be found, right? The dude is traveling through the woods like he's paranoid. Like, oh my God, they probably found it. They're looking for me. Just keep hiding, just keep hiding. He comes out of the woods. Word gets out. He's seen. People are looking for him and Kyle. He doesn't hear that the body has been found, but instead that they're looking for Kyle. Then his mental thinking is going to change. Oh shit, Kyle's missing. He's not dead. Okay. So when they bring him out to the woods and they're questioning him as to what happened because they found the truck, he takes them on his little path through the woods instead of where the body would be. By that point, who knows what happened to the body? Like I explained earlier, nature happens. A place like this, there's going to be a limited time frame. Now things change. There's stories I've come across of like hikers that their bodies are discovered, they're wrapped in their sleeping bag in their tent. Animals aren't really going to put up a fight for food that is probably starting to smell a little funky. So there are those stories where that kid in Alaska that died in that bus. Granted, the wildlife in Alaska is a lot different than here. So yeah, I think I am leaving here with more answers, fewer questions. It's becoming a little more obvious to me as to what probably happened. And I can write down theories, I can tell stories. There's just certain facts that you can't argue with. And no, I will never be able to get into the mind of a crackhead. Brian! But even then, oh my God, shit does not make sense. And then there's what I was told by certain people who are very, very familiar with the case, which is anytime these people come across those who are involved with Brian, they tell stories of, they're afraid to rat him out on things because he likes to tell the story of, do not fuck with me, you know what happened to Kyle. Meanwhile, these people are like under the suspicion that two guys went into the middle of the woods to have a good time and things went wrong. Maybe Brian's gay. It'd be the first time there's a gay serial killer. I mean, it's only one dude, but up here, who knows? Maybe there's more to Brian than we know. I mean, Kyle was a good-looking guy. I don't even swing that way. If I see a picture of that guy, I'm like, dude probably got a lot of ass. Probably. Like, if he wasn't... So, yeah. Anyways. I don't think I'm that far from the car now. Alright, that's it for me. I don't really have any more thoughts on this. But god damn. These woods. It's freaking crazy back here. I'm seeing something that might look like a gate or something. Yeah, there's something back there too. But that's the side of that campsite, so who knows. Anyways, that's about it for me. Keep on typing.